Hey, before we start the episode, this is just a reminder this episode does take place before we had changed to a strictly interview format, and as such, there may be references to the other episodes we used to do that don't have anything to do with that. You can disregard that and just enjoy the episode.
The Graphic Histories Podcast.
Strength of spider. Now I'm invincible and I can fly. I lost my sight, my other senses were heightened. I'm gonna put on my pajamas and go fight crime.
Merry Christmas and welcome to the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is André. I will be your host for the duration of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and big thanks to Ukla the Mock for our theme song, Superpowers. I hope you had a very wonderful holiday as I'm recording this prior to Christmas Day. I'm hoping that the day itself went wonderful. You get to spend time with friends and family and whoever you want to spend time with, and you had a blast. That being said, I hope everything is going well and that the holiday is finding you and yours well. I will be at this time of this release probably back in my home, but for Christmas I'll be spending it at my parents' house, and then we'll spend time with some of my wife's extended family. It should be good. Very good. I'm excited for it, and I love the holiday season. I'm a big fan of Christmas. It's a lot of fun. I think it's a time where people kind of come together sometimes, and maybe if they need to, if they don't need to, sometimes it has a way of uniting people in a way, and whether it's all, real or not, I don't know, but it seems to put people in a little bit of a better mood and maybe give them some impetus to come together more than they do throughout the rest of the year. So I am very happy for the holidays to be here, and I'm very excited to spend them with family, as I hope you are as well. Today's episode I'm very excited about is with the incomparable Marco Rudy, who I learned a lot about during this conversation. I've always been a huge fan of his work, and I try not to gush too much during the interview. However, I do bring it up, and we talk a bit about sort of the influences for his work. His family, how he got started in the industry, his new creator-owned book, RDW, which is super cool. Very cool project that I kickstarted, and if you didn't, well, you missed the boat. However, hopefully there'll be another Kickstarter or some other way for you to get those books once they come out, because I believe the print run is already mostly spoken for. But it looks like an amazing project, and I'm very excited to be on board to talk to him about it, because he was very cool. And Marco is a class act, and I think you'll enjoy the interview as well. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time since this is a holiday and you're hopefully relaxing, enjoying, and just want to listen to a fun interview with Marco. So I will delve right into today's episode. Today's episode is episode number 35, Marco Rudy.
And video.
Here you are.
Can you hear and listen to me?
I can hear and listen.
Cool.
Excellent. I like your computer chair.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. That is a fancy get up behind you there.
Oh, what the?
Oh, the whole stuff.
Oh, yeah. I got a lot of nerdy stuff for sure.
Is that like the red lighting there? Is that like Star Wars related now?
No, it's the BPRD logo. It's like the symbol.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
That's
it's like
cool.
I don't know if you can make it out through the camera, but
yeah. Where did you get that?
That I think they just had it at the comic store. I'm pretty sure Strange Adventures, maybe.
Yeah.
Or the local ones they had here in Truro. I think they had. I live in Truro, Nova Scotia, so
yeah.
I think they had it in there one time.
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't relate that you're in Nova Scotia.
Oh, no, that is totally my bad. Don't worry about that. That's my bad. I should have known. I think I knew you were in Quebec. I just didn't think about it when we had.
Yeah, it's just that, I thought you're either with like New Brunswick or Halifax, which regardless, it would be
Yeah.
the same about it. And just I didn't click. I'm like, this is a different time zone.
Oh, I think most of our interactions in the past have been through Nick, so I can see why the New
Yes,
Brunswick thing would probably be
exactly. Yeah,
would
yeah.
be assumed for sure. But how are you doing, man? How's you ready for the holidays?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Everything is slowly but steadily. I mean, the year has been weird in a way that sometimes it goes so fast and then sometimes it goes super, super slow. For the most of it, it
Mhm.
went super slow.
Yeah,
So it's just the way it is, I guess. But yeah, getting to it.
yeah,
Anxious to just go to the next one.
yeah. I hear you. It's almost like a weird catharsis in hoping that that when the year ends, that some of the issues that have come with the past year are going to end. I know some of them will carry over, but it's like
Yeah, yeah.
mentally you need to like compartmentalize that maybe this year, like it's all confined within that year, and we can push that behind.
And just as the year is ending, you're like, oh, at least there is a light at, like for instance with the vaccine, there's a light
Mhm.
at the end of the tunnel with that. And then you get, oh, there's a new strand of virus in the UK that is warranted a new lockdown, and this new strand is super weird. And I'm like, oh, this is never gonna end.
I know. I actually saw a link to that recently because that's a fairly new thing, right? Didn't that just
Very,
yeah?
very new.
And I think I
Like last
even
week.
was. I think when I saw it, I was like, I'm not mentally prepared to read this right now. So like, I'm gonna come back
Oh,
to this later, and
yeah.
because it was just one of those days where I'm like, I don't think I can handle another bout of this is going to continue, or we need another vaccine, or it's going to be
Yeah,
way worse. Or,
like I'm hoping that things go in a way that I would like to launch the book, the RDW book. I'd like to launch it at the Beguiling in Toronto
Mhm.
in October. But the thing is, if I can make this fast enough, that is earlier, so I can get to TCAP in August. Oh, that would be like perfect. Like I would go there and we launch it at TCAP. But the thing is, if there's the coronavirus up until then, there's none of that will happen.
Exactly, yeah, and
Oh,
that's
yeah,
been a rough. I mean, you were pretty active on the convention circuit, so this past year must have been incredibly quiet
yeah,
for you.
yeah. It's just one of those things. Like this year, it almost seems like it didn't happen. This year was the first time I did a C2E2,
Hmm.
and it seems like it was like 3 4 years ago.
Mm,
It was this year. It was
hmm.
in February, at the end of
Yeah,
February, and it seems like it was forever ago. It's just one of those things.
yeah, I ran into that too. A friend of mine just celebrated his 50th birthday, and before that, like we have a mutual friend who had his 50th birthday because they all grew up together, and I met him through theater, so he's older than me, but I kind of met friends of his through gaming and stuff. So they had
Mhm.
a surprise party for him in Montreal. So in March, I flew up there kind of
Mhm.
a day early so we could all surprise him. And I like, I went and did stuff around Montreal. I love the city and just sort of like, had a really fun day. And it's like hard to believe that that was this year. It seems
Here,
like it was an eternity ago.
yes,
So
yeah, that is true.
exactly. Yeah, cool. So where did the beginnings of you happen? Like where were you born?
I'm from Mozambique, which is
Yes.
a former Portuguese colony in Africa.
Hmm.
It's bordering South Africa, so normally that's my reference to it. If
Hmm.
anybody has an idea of where in the continent South Africa is, it's the other reference would be if you think of Madagascar in relation to the continent,
Hmm.
Mozambique is the mirror image of
Also the
Madagascar.
opposite side coast.
Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, I did not start drawing comics. Well, I mean, I've always drew, but the reality of drawing comics in Mozambique, like working for these companies, is fairly non-existent.
Hmm.
Like it's still today when I mention, oh yeah, my job is to draw comics, people just scoff. It's not
Really?
a real job. It wasn't a real job then. It's hardly a real job right now. I have to then say, for those people that are not aware of, like, oh, I live in Canada.
Hmm.
I moved to Canada because, like, through my work, I paid my ticket to go there.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. But
So when you were like, when did you come here?
I came here in 2011. I moved first to Brazil, where I lived almost 10 years, and then after that, I moved to Canada.
How old were you when you came?
I was 28. 28.
Okay.
in 2018.
So how long were you in Mozambique for?
19 years of my life.
Oh, well, okay. So right up until you
Well,
could get out, basically.
yeah, it was just all my school time. All
Mhm.
my school time was done in Mozambique, and then I went to Brazil to do university.
Mhm.
I studied architecture there, and it was actually my teachers in my college teacher that kept telling me, "Dude, you keep drawing Godzilla destroying your buildings and Spider-Man swinging and Batman here. Why don't you do comics?" And kind of like teachers egging me on to do that was actually what got me to start a Deviant Art page because I always thought this was for other people.
Mhm.
Because like representation matters in a
Mhm.
way, in the fact that I never knew of any continent African person working in comics, like ever.
Ah,
It's just one of those things like, yeah, it's just not for me.
yeah.
And like I opened a DeviantArt page, and I think it was like the week that I did that DeviantArt page, somebody contacted me, "Hey, would you like to do this thing?" And I think after some months after that, it was when I actually got an actual offer. "Hey, would
Yeah.
you like to do this create your own book?"
Well, that's incredibly fast. That's an important conversation, I think, about representation in the industry and how, up until a certain point. I mean, I'm a fan of comics all over the map, and you even looking at old comics or reading old stuff. It's just so many like North American white people, like all the way back, and like there's not a lot of even like mention of creators that of color or from different nationalities.
Yeah.
I mean, short of some of the French people, but that's still European, and it's still kind of the same
Yeah,
sort of vein.
yeah. And
So.
it's even in the way that like I have a gripe with just normally American comics
Mhm.
where what was it? I worked in a title called The Shield
Mhm.
where
Was that the Archie Comics thing, or?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, okay,
it
yeah.
was when DC owned the rights.
Oh, so how long ago was that?
It was a full run. It was a year.
Okay, yeah, I remember. Was like what year would that have come out?
Uh, 2010. No, it's not 2010.
Because I remember those comics when I was a kid. Like I remember, like Black Hood and the Shield, and when they tried to like make those like super dark in like maybe the
Yeah,
early '90s or mid '90s, and I remember
yeah,
like hooking up with the Black Hood a little bit and some of
yeah.
those connections. So I remember when they kind of did that redo.
Yeah, they did a I think it was 2010. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I started DC in 2008. Yeah, 2010 to
Mhm.
2011 was the full run
Mhm.
of the Archie comics
Yep.
in DC, and I did the Shield. And it was one of the and like the writer, like I'm good friends with him, but I called him out in one sequence where there is a situation that happens that starts in Rio de Janeiro, and
Mhm.
then they go to the Amazon. And like I'm like, okay, this is a superhero comic book.
Mhm.
The distance between this state and this state, it's fairly considerable.
Mhm.
Just do a Google search. This is a minor thing.
Yeah.
This so we need at least to show that it's the morning here and it's the afternoon there, because we have established that this character's top speed is this one.
Mhm.
So it can't go from this to this. And this is something that happened lots, like Roberto da Costa, the Brazilian character from the New Mutants.
Yes. Yeah.
He's no, most of his 80s and 90s appearances, his mannerisms were all Italian, and I'm like, dude, this guy is Brazilian. Like he's like, it's Brazilian from Rio, which is it's like New York.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like you're putting a character that is from New York that has this mannerism that speaks in a specific way, and you're like, oh no, he's Brazilian.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. You're like,
But that's a very interesting point, because like for instance, someone like, I don't know, Ben Grimm or The Thing, like the regional dialect from the particular part of New York he's from, people will like that's a big part of his character that's super focused on.
Exactly.
And writers will reference different areas of the states with a lot of care and intricate detail. But when it comes to broadly, European or African or Asian places, they're just like, it's over there, and it doesn't matter. But
to
it
be
does.
honest, the original market was always the United States. The original consumer was always the United States. So it's more like, these people, the reader won't care much. But I'm like, it's not even more to the, oh, if you're doing this to everybody else. It's more like if you're informing, I mean, I knew things about New York. I knew expressions of French, Russian, and German because of Spider-Man, because of the X-Men. So if I knew these things, if I learned these things through reading comics, you can teach somebody else about just where is Rio de Janeiro. It's just a simple thing.
Yeah.
It's just, anyways, it was just like a minor tangent on the whole representation thing.
No, but it's a very good point, like a super good point.
Yeah. So yeah. As I said, it was mostly my teachers to blame. My university. I was studying architecture. I did not graduate mostly because when I got to, like, I started doing DC Comics, so 2008, and I was like a year and a half shy of graduation. But it started off with me doing Final Crisis, and it was like,
which was a huge event for DC, massive event.
Yeah, like top speed, can't stop. And right after that, I continued doing like I started doing more and more stuff, still related to Final Crisis, until I finally landed on the Shield, which was my first ongoing. And by then they gave me so 2010, it was 2 years after, yeah. They gave me the like exclusive contract in 2009, yeah. And the thing is, like 2008 to early 2009, I don't even remember now. But the thing is, as I started doing more and more comics, I started taking less and less classes.
Yeah, of course.
Which was then delaying graduation to a point that I remember Ivan Brandon came to, or Ivan Brandon, yeah, Ivan Brandon came to Porto Alegre, which is the city that I was living in Brazil, because he is friends with Rafael Albuquerque, and
the author, the artist from American Vampire. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I love his work. He's fantastic.
And he actually, Rafael was the guy like that put me eventually in the connection that got me to DC Comics. I was working through his studio, so like I know Rafael. We're good friends.
Oh wow, awesome.
So we had dinner, me and Ivan, and he's like, dude, you have to make a choice here. Either you stop doing comics and graduate, or you're stop doing college and continue doing comics, because you're starting to be lax with your deadlines, and editors don't like that. You're just starting right now and you cannot be lax with deadlines. So I'm like, I'm about to get a exclusive contract with this company that I never thought that I would work in, like I never even dreamed of, and I can graduate to work as an architect, to be an intern for 3 years, or have a fantastic idea for a company in a type of work that I eventually grew out of. Like I fell out of love with architecture around 2006, but I was still in college. So I'm like, it's a very hard decision to make.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing college. I just kept going.
So what was the impetus for architecture? Was it something your parents wanted you to go into, or is it something that you just wanted to do?
It's one of those things, because I always drew. Architecture was the logical real person's job.
Yeah, I find was that something your parents talked to you, like was involved with you, or
a little bit, but it was more like the people around me. Like there was a guy that I admired that he was an architect, and he used AutoCAD and he used computers. He rode a bike, so it's like I wanted to be that guy growing up, and I fancied architecture. I'm like, it was cool until, as I said, like shortly after mid the whole course of college, that I was like, you know what, this is just not for me. The thing is, the creative process of architecture I always loved. The calculus and the tech involved, I hated. I hate AutoCAD. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a pretty important part of the system.
Yes.
The reason I mentioned just with parents, they found myself and other people I know, creative types growing up, It seems like when I drew a lot as a kid, people would always be like, oh yeah, you got to be like an animator for Disney. And it's almost like people have like a specific idea on how you can use what your art is to make money. And that's immediately what they go for. You know, it's like, you should be an animator. You should, what about architecture? You know, stuff like that. That's related to the creative process, but not exactly what you had in mind. Just something that's going to make you money, which is important, you know.
And therein lies the difference of availability of things. Like,
yes, I suppose so. Yeah.
I would not get people telling me, hey, you can try Disney. It's just, again, it's so off screen, that kind of stuff. Like, oh yeah, that's it's for different continents.
Yeah.
I was even aware, I was a big fan, am still, of Joe Mad. And I knew that he, like, one of the things that made it relatable was that Joe Mad had Portuguese family in him. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So Joe Mad is Portuguese. It's definitely not. He just had, Joe Madureira has that surname because somebody in his family is of Portuguese origin. I eventually met him in Paris in 2016, and after gushing a little bit, I just like, dude, like, what's Portuguese in you? And he's like, yeah, I like my mother or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's not a deep part of his self-identity. Yeah.
But it was just outside of that, and outside of the fact that I knew that there were Brazilian artists. Even living in Brazil, I'm like, yeah, this is for Brazilian artists. It's not for me. Until, again, I got the shot, and I'm like, I remember, like, a lot of stuff happened in between this. I was out of money. I got evicted. Like the year of 2007 was, everything went tits up, like completely tits up. And in between that, this is when I met Raphael. I got into his studio. I was still out of a job. I'm still out of money, still doing college, and with barely any money to pay the rent. Eventually, I got evicted. But during that time, where was I going to get with this? That like I met an agent, like not like Raphael presented me to an agent, and Raphael was like, hey man, this guy, he normally puts everybody on the radar of either DC or Marvel. If you think you're ready to give it a go, you can talk to him. I talked to the guy. I faked I did like a portfolio. And I prepared the sequence where it's like Superman invades Asgard. It's actually, today, it's still not terrible.
No, I'm sure it sounds pretty cool.
It was all in pencils, and it took forever to do it. Like I took like 4 days to pencil paste. And so I was with the editor, and the editor from DC at a convention, that the only convention they attended in Brazil. Festival, I forgot the name of now. It's in Belo Horizonte, anyways.
Oh, cool. I'm surprised there was one. I didn't know the DC would do conventions that deep.
Oh, they do, mostly because this guy, Joe Prado, you know, is the inker, Joe Prado.
Yep.
He is like the super agent. Like Brazilian artist super agent. So normally he brings them there to the convention. So he was the guy of like, hey, we're gonna do this portfolio review, and the editor was there, and he asked me, looking at me like, hey, how long did you take to do this? And I'm like, I looked to Raphael, like, oh yeah, I'm like 24 hours. And Raphael's like, yeah, 24 hours. And the guy just looked at me, and he's like, yeah, you caught me.
I mean, your stuff is so detailed that I couldn't imagine to take a glance at it, someone would believe that. It'd be like amazing.
So well, even after that, when the guy sends me an email, hey man, I got your first gig. I was in the library, like looking at emails in the library, like college library. I read it, like shouted, man, it's so surreal. Like, hey, you never imagine that you will be working for these companies ever. Like, never thought that I would dream that this would happen. And then all of a sudden, hey, here's Final Crisis. It's the current event at DC Comics. Go draw. Yeah. Oh, it was pretty big.
Did you do any work with, like, directly with Grant Morrison involved with that, or is he just overseeing the whole thing?
I did the well, it's funny because it turns out that I designed the most prominent character of that storyline. The Natu Nick something. So Nick something. It's the character that is a what is the antimatter character? The one that,
The Annie
sorry?
Monitor?
Yeah, the monitor. So it's a race of monitors.
Oh yes. Yeah, right. The sort of more good.
Younger
Yes,
version.
The sort of good monitor that was sort of looking
Yeah,
at it.
yeah.
Yes, okay, I'm familiar. Yeah,
So
Nixuo Toman.
I'm drawing the sequence, whatever, and then there's this. Oh yeah, this is the character. You have to design it. I'm like, oh, okay. I did not get any notes. Like I didn't get any notes, so I just designed character.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get a buttload of notes from Grant Morrison. He was pissed. I'm like, yeah, but it's not my fault. Nobody gave me a single note.
Really?
Yeah, I was just
Wow.
like, this just landed on me. It's last page. I just drew it. So I redesigned the character, made it a lot simpler.
Uh-huh.
And hey, that iconic character, I designed it.
He is.
I will never get credit for it.
That's very interesting how that works with those big companies. It seems like a lot of people do these sort of work for hire things that turn into big things, and they don't really get their name doesn't get included in the conversation later when it becomes like if they make a movie of that character, would you see a cent from that? Yeah. So, but his design, I'm actually looking at it right now because I remember he played prominently in Multiversity.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm a big Grant Morrison fan, so I read pretty much everything he puts out. And it's a very unique take on that, as well as that kind of made him more ethnic, which is cool. You know, like they made him dark.
Oh no, the thing is,
was that something you injected or something they wanted?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's great because he really stands out from the other monitors that way.
Mostly because of all of like that character is me.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say there is a resemblance. That's why I was trying to get to that without actually overtly saying like, did you just base this on yourself?
Oh no, it was. And the thing is, like the previous sequence, the previous pages before is when Darkseid finally appears, and there's a bunch of crowd that are like zombies and whatnot. And I'm featured like 3 times there. There's my face like 3 times. And I'm like, this is a bit weird because I am already using my face for this guy. So I just changed the dues and I put glasses and I took glasses. but it's the only time that I used myself as a character. It's weird that I've never done it after or before.
Do you find that's a conscious effort? Or is it something that just kind of seeps in without thinking about it sometimes?
It's just that like over time the characters you start creating they just manifest themselves as they are. Yeah. So like there was one like for the creator-owned book, which I will get to it. But
oh, absolutely, yeah, we'll talk about that.
My first take on that was essentially to do a mix between the Never-Ending Story and The Witcher. The series of books, mostly the books.
Yes, I know you're a big fan. I've noticed you talked about it on social media a lot, and you got Troy into it, which seems to be the bane of his existence right now. So.
Finally, and the thing is, the character that I created, my first designs. It was just me again, and I was like, nah. I changed them a little bit. The body type is essentially the body type that I have. But the face is all different and whatnot. But and as I progressed in the making of this story, I'm like, okay, this character is part of this universe. It exists. We will see him eventually. The story is not about him. He just participates. So I think it's the only other time where I reference myself, but most of the time I don't.
Ah. So before we get into some of the more recent stuff, where you grew up, I'm just a little more interested about what did your folks do?
My folks, my mom is she's a multitasker. She essentially nowadays has a company that deals with she makes little dolls and like manufacturing. Is that no? There's a name.
Yeah, that's weird.
I forget the exact name for it, but she makes little dolls and sells them. My dad is a electrical engineer.
Okay.
He's worked most of his life.
Are they still with him?
Railway company in Mozambique. Yeah, they're both in Mozambique.
Okay. And do you have any brothers, sisters?
Yes, I have a brother and two sisters. My brother is currently living in Paris, my younger sister in Rome, and my older sister still lives in Mozambique.
Oh
So
wow,
we are kind of
spread out across the world.
a little bit, yes.
The Rudies are taking over.
Yeah.
Are they do they do anything in the creative sort of realm, or are they in their
My
own?
sister was the architect that I was supposed to be.
Ah, she inherited the mantle. There it is.
Yeah, but and she does like macrame as well. But
Okay, cool.
everybody else is a little more on they have real jobs. In fact, my sister has a real job.
Mhm.
I'm the only one that doesn't.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. I think you're. I mean, I want to go into this without being like super gushy as well because I'm a big fan of your work, and
Thank you.
ever since I think I was introduced to you through the Spider-Man miniseries.
Oh,
I think.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, the Marvel Knights one, and
Yeah.
it was just page after page of beautiful, like artwork, and the way you mix media when you do it, like I don't know, I just think it's astounding, and I was very eager to talk to you about it because your style is very different. Like if I had to compare it to anyone, I don't think I could. The only thing it kind of reminds me of is J.H. Williams a little bit, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that before. But
I told him.
Oh, you told him.
Told
Yeah.
him. I told
Or
him
Frank Avella a little bit, but I definitely think it's I see some of that as well. But man, like but you take what he does and like not to comparatives. I know they're two very different artists, but like you inject almost a more surrealist thing into it, which I really like. Like I super
over time it got to there. I mean, back at DC, the times that I had full creative freedom was only the one when I did the Shield,
yeah.
which honestly was a book that wasn't selling very well.
Mhm.
So I would say that editor was like, yeah, you guys can do whatever. so I started stretching my creative muscles in the way of storytelling on them. And ever since then, like I wanted to do more stuff like that, and I didn't get a lot of chances. Like with Swamp Thing, I had a chance a little bit, but it was not that. It was more like there was an approach that we had to take.
Mhm.
It was already like the design was already defined. I had to take that approach. So I wasn't implementing my style. I was more just adapting what I do to what the design needed it to be.
Mhm.
Whereas when I get to Marvel, actually I got the gig by at karaoke.
Really? Just
yeah,
like a mixer with comic artists or something, or comic people?
no, it was like a comic convention in Toronto, like Fan Expo. It was Fan Expo in Toronto, and just hanging out with everybody, partying, whatever. And then did my sing along, and then the guy that just finished started talking to me, and he's like, "Hey, you're Mark, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah. You're the guy from something." I'm like, Yanick is the guy from something. I'm the other guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, like you're still doing that. I'm like, actually my exclusive just ran out, so I am about to end like I was doing the last two issues or just the last issue that I did
Mhm.
with something. And he's like, oh, like, would you be interested in doing something for Marvel? I'm like, yeah, sure, of course. And he's like,
Trying to play it cool.
And he's like, yeah, I'm Nick Lowe. I'm the prime editor of Spider-Man books. I'm like, okay. Good to know. Good to know. Like I got sober real fast. Like oh, really? Oh, okay.
click your brain into work mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, networking mode.
They offered me the Spider-Man miniseries with this a pretty the difference in payment was visible.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like the magical sentence of creative freedom. Do whatever you want. Like literally it said there, do whatever you want. I'm like, I'm not gonna pass on that. So you'll notice that at least on the first issue of the Spider-Man miniseries, I was literally throwing everything at the wall, see what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And I found my stride in there. So you will see that as I go to the series, I'm more and more comfortable. And at the very end, I started introducing watercolors into it, which then when I did the next stuff, which was the Winter Soldier, it was all painted.
Yeah.
So I finally found how is it exactly that I approach storytelling? I like the idea, like visual storytelling on a page. I like the idea of what J.H. Jones does, or what David Mack does, Bill Sienkiewicz
Oh, I
did,
never thought of David Mack, but yeah, I can see that as well for sure.
where it's almost as if it's a conversation.
Mhm.
The person that is reading the book can just read the panel to panel sequence, but they can find the whole sequence and find meaning, find other hidden messages there that I like.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can do that too in my way. So that's how I got to what.
And it was almost like playing with the medium in a way too, that
Definitely.
because like it wasn't just, it's like the borders, the frames, all the parts of the story
Yes.
mirrored the villains that were kind of featured in those things in different little ways. So it was almost like a new sort of, it was like reading, you could read the standard comic, but if you pay attention to everything else around the frame parts, or even the parts outside of that, it was all relevant to what was going on in a different way, or at least trying to like impart the theme of the villain itself, which I just loved it. I thought it was so cool and unique.
Something that you probably will only see on the actual original pages is, for instance, there's a sequence where Venom and Carnage attack Spider-Man, and the whole paneling of that sequence, I thought I had been using like acrylic ink. I thought that when it dries, it just makes a texture, like it's just a texture of a drip.
Mhm.
So I'm like, if I can make the paneling with these blots, it creates, it's as if the symbiotes are invading the page,
Mhm.
which I thought this is a cool idea. So I did it with black, which when it was just the Venom, with red when it was just Carnage, and as they merge, like the sequence where Spider-Man fights the two at the same time, it's merged. I was like, this is probably, I'm the only one that's going to see this, but it's super clever. Somebody took it to themselves to I think it was from the Spider-Man miniseries on, or at least upwards to the Winter Soldier,
Mhm.
and they were like trying to find how I did things and why, and like they wouldn't reveal the book. It was just like, so this is what Marco did today. I was like, yeah, that's cool.
That is really cool.
Thank you.
It must be very rewarding to have fans
Hey,
recognize that instead of just a private thing for yourself, that somebody
Exactly.
notices the work involved.
Exactly, because that kind of interactivity is what I want people to go and look. Oh, what is this? Oh, this means. Oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me happy. So when I would wait for whenever the new issue is, but is this guy gonna do it this time?
Because comics can be like, not to shit another artist or anything, but comics can be so disposable sometimes. Like if you get a very basic comic and it's not a lot of words and the art isn't super in depth or anything, you can flip through it in a matter of like, a minute or two and read the issue and it's done. But when you do something like the style that you have, it really rewards you for paying attention and actually investing into it more than just the sort of surface thing of just reading the letters and then briefly getting the picture, moving on.
Yeah, to be honest, the gist of the mainstream American comics is like it's a good burger. It's read it, throw like the next one.
Yeah.
Whereas I normally, like, I joke of this, that the mainstream American comics is like eating a good burger, and reading a good bande dessinée album is like having a good steak dinner. It's like because it's this disposability of the medium. I mean, you have tight deadlines. You need to commit to those deadlines. So normally, most of the time, you don't have the time to dedicate yourself to do those stuff. I mean that stuff. I mean, when I did the Winter Soldier, by the end of it, I was completely wasted. I'm like, it's unsustainable to paint 22 pages a month and a cover. I can't do that. Let's just like, this is crazy.
For a monthly book, it's incredibly incredibly big mountain to climb for sure.
Oh, no. And nobody told me to do that. I was like, oh, I want to do this because I want to. And at the end of the day, it's that kind of approach. It's unsustainable. So the market kind of invites creativity in the way that you have to account for time. Like you can
Yeah.
be more creative all you want, but most of the time, or if not 100% of the time, you have to just be professional. So
That's
maybe
something I
calling
think.
myself out here and by not being professional.
Oh, not at all. But I think that's something people don't think about as much as like it's like anything. If you're really good at your job, that's great. But if it takes you 3 days longer than they need you to do it, then you're not great at your job, really. That is a big factor that people don't take into account, especially with monthly books or biweekly books or some of the stuff that comes out that way. Because it is time's a huge factor, and definitely plays into your ability to get the art or the finished product you want to get done out there.
I mean, during the Morrison run, the X-Men Morrison run, they had Igor Corday draw three issues in like 3 weeks, and he got bashed by critics, like bashed. And I'm like, I have read the other books that Igor Corday has drawn. Okay, it's an acquired taste, but with time, he does things.
Yeah.
And his paintings are beautiful. So, like, because there was a lack of awareness of that fact, he just got bashed. He didn't even get a gig after that. I'm like, that sucks, man.
One of the references I always make is I was always and still am a big Mark Bagley fan, just mainly because his work with Spider-Man.
Well, he's super fast.
Oh yeah, but like there was a time in the '90s where he was doing like Amazing Spider-Man and the Venom Lethal Protector series and something else, and there are issues in that Lethal Protector series that are like don't even look like he drew them. I'm like, is this Bagley? And I look at it and I'm like, man, the guy must have been run ragged because he was like the guy at the time and they just had him doing everything. And of course, at that time, you want to please your editor and you also want to make money. So you're just going. But that's part of it. It's a big part of it.
Yeah.
So very cool. So when you were, like you mentioned earlier, Deviant Art is how you got discovered. Like you were putting your stuff out on Deviant Art.
Yeah.
And what was the first gig? It was a creator-owned book, right? No, an indie press book, right?
Yeah, well, I did. I was like the first guy that contacted me was a Brazilian guy. I wanted to do like a samurai thing that it didn't turn out, and I was very, very wrong.
So just a guy that had a thing he wanted to. Was it like exposure dollars? You're gonna? I can't pay you.
Really. It was.
Oh, really? Okay, that's good.
I don't remember if they didn't have their act together or something like that. But
I think every artist has that story of that guy, that train they hooked up to when they first started that didn't really go anywhere, right?
Yeah. And like right after that, I got contacted by Howard Wong, which is a Canadian creator. And he's like, hey, man, I got this book about a character that is about, interestingly enough, I'm delving into the same kind of things nowadays with the book that I'm writing, but it's about addiction. It's a character that was a hero, but through alcohol addiction, they fell out of love with the job, and it eventually becomes a villain. So that was the premise. And he's like, I got to contact that Image. Would you be interested? I'm like, Image is where Spawn comes out. I know that. So I didn't know much more about Image besides Spawn at the time.
Were you a Spawn fan?
Yes, I guess I was.
Don't be embarrassed to admit that. I mean,
No. It's just that I at the time I loved the movie until I hated it because it's horrible.
I know. When you remove the childhood nostalgia from some of that stuff and you go back and reassess it as an adult, you're like, oh man, yeah, it's not great.
That movie as an awesome soundtrack.
And the cast was pretty good too. Like you couldn't argue with the people on board. It's just it wasn't that well written. But for the time, it was so different.
There's a tagline on on the cover of the DVD or the video cassette, which was like, it was like the best like special effects of 1996 or whatever, whenever the movie came out. Yeah.
Man, and those hell sequences later, like some of the worst. It's like the worst CGI you've ever seen.
The hell sequence when they showed the army of spawns reacting to Malbosia. That's a GIF image. It's a GIF of the guy's face, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible.
It's the greatest special effects spectacle of our time period.
However, John Leguizamo in that movie kills it.
I actually like Michael J. White as well. Like he's fun. He's have you seen Black Dynamite?
Of course.
It's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I love that movie.
Dynamite is the best Luke Cage movie never made.
Yeah, that is true. That is very true. You want this? I never thought of that.
Yeah,
That's like
I
a
just need
'70s Luke
Danny-
Cage movie. Yeah,
Yeah, I just need to do the Danny Ryan. Dude. That's the
Yeah.
best '70s Luke Cage never
that's
made.
amazing. You could have thrown in like a '70s Iron Fist in there. That would have been perfect.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow,
It's so good.
cool. So so you got to work with Image for that.
Yeah. I did a book called Corrective Measures there with Shadowline. So this was
Oh wow, Shadowline, that imprint. That's a long
what's
deep
his
cut.
Jim Valentino's run?
Yep. I think that was his because he was doing Shadowhawk through that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was three issues. And the thing is, I got sick with malaria because I had to go back to Mozambique in between that time. I got sick with malaria, and they didn't believe me because malaria doesn't exist. So I'm like, malaria exists in Mozambique, and
Oh, it most certainly exists in Africa for sure.
I've had it several times. So I'm
Wow.
like, I just need to take the meds and lie down. I can't do much.
Yeah, my uncle had it as well. He used to be a gold miner in Africa, and
Yeah.
I remember when he had it, he came back after he was on the other side of it, kind of, but he was out of it for a while. Like he was,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they didn't believe me. So when I was out of it, they're like, "Hey man, you're missing out on deadlines. You need to compensate." So like there was no time to finish.
Mhm.
So I got it ended poorly.
Mhm.
Like I drew 15 pages out of 22, and I didn't draw the remaining pages. Shadowline put out a little notice saying that I was unprofessional, and I'm like, dude, I was sick. But
In the like in the comic or just like, oh my god,
a letter section, like
oh wow,
yeah. So that actually kicked in the 2007 year that I told you about.
oh, okay,
So I got paid for that, and then I had no gig for a year.
oh, okay.
So I'm like,
You're kind of blacklisted a little bit.
yeah.
Mhm.
And through that I found, like, it was randomly I saw an interview with a Brazilian comic book studio. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool to know. And the studio is in Porto Alegre, like it's in the same city I live. Okay, let me look for the studio. So I just try to find the studio. It was Rafael's studio. So went there, met him, met Matteo Santoloco, met Chris Peter. They're all like standards in the industry nowadays, which is
Oh, yeah.
super cool to see. Yeah.
Raphael's working on that J.J. Abrams Spider-Man comic. Is that right? Am I right with that one?
You know, Raphael mostly does his own thing now, and he does the odd like Marvel and DC stuff, but he's been doing his own, like, he's got a new imprint called Stealth Club,
Mhm.
so he's been doing that. He released he's got a deal with Comixology, so they have like a 4 or 5 book deal, like IPs, 4 or 5
Okay.
IPs deal. So yeah.
I feel like I've seen his work in something recently, which is why I thought it was that, but I may not be right.
Wasn't it like a Justice League thing? I don't know.
Maybe so. Well, I know the new American Vampire just came out, but
Yeah, there's also there's the new American Vampire as well.
yes, as well. But I thought he had done because Abrams is doing a Spider-Man mini or something. That's like a different story.
With the kid, with his
Yeah,
kid.
yeah.
But that ended, didn't it? I don't know.
No, it's still going. I think. But that's what I was thinking of was his Mark Miller stuff with Huck.
Yeah.
But no, cool, very cool. So yeah, I was wondering how that connection got made. So that's cool.
Mhm.
Excellent.
So I was there till like I was in Brazil till 2010,
Mhm.
but we remained friends ever since.
And so while you were doing work or through a studio, basically got signed up with those other companies. Why
Yeah,
did you pick? Why'd you pick Quebec?
Oh no, like
That's way later.
Yeah, kind of. As my visa was ending in Brazil, I was like, I would like to have more contact with fans. I would like to have, like, I always see people talk about drink and draw. It was specifically drink and draw, and the people that I kept seeing this was Marcus Co, that he was posting about drink and draw on Deviant Art, and I'm like, I would like to go to this drink and draw stuff and participate in the connection with fans, interaction with other artists. Because in Brazil, like, yeah, there's a bunch of them, but they're each to their corner, you know. And there's a community in nowadays it's a lot bigger, but at the time it was even the community that you found in Porto Alegre was very sparse, so very spaced out. So I wanted a little more connectivity. So in like another guy that I kept following that was also doing the drink and draw stuff with Marcus was a Brazilian artist called Marcio Takar. So I just hit him up like on Deviant Art, hey man, like I love your stuff, I follow your work, whatever, whatever. And how is his life in Canada? Like I just asked him, and he's like, oh, it's this is this. Like what are you asking? Like I'm thinking of trying to get a visa to go there, and he's like, oh, cool. So I applied for a visa. I had to go back to Mozambique. I had to wait just for the visa. That was like 11 months. It took forever to get the visa. But after that, like I'm like, yeah, I'm on my way to Toronto. And it only dawned on me that I was going to a new country that I've never visited, where people don't speak my native tongue, where I don't know anybody. When I was in I had to do a transition like on the flight. So we stopped in Amsterdam. So I was there for a couple of hours, and it dawned on me like, oh yeah, this is what's happening right now. And then I got a little bit panicked.
Well, when you were coming, did you have a place set up to live? Like, where was your place?
Yeah, I set up everything.
Okay, cool.
I rented one or 2 days a hotel because I needed to confirm some things with the bank to get a rent, to pay rent.
Oh yeah.
And that was just it. It was just a matter of, in fact, what was going to be 2 days ended up being 1 day, because the first day I was in the hotel. Like I arrived at 10 in the morning in Toronto, and I got afraid. I got panicked. So I was in the hotel till 10 p.m.
Wow.
And I only got out like because I was super hungry. and I'm like, all right, I need to explore my surroundings here. Like there's no going back now. I'm already here. So, and I got used to it really, really fast. Like literally 3 days in, I was like, all right, this is what I was looking for.
I know a few people that have come to the country from others, like that live here now. I work with someone from Mexico, and they're like, I think in general, I think it depends on the area you're in, but Canadians in general are fairly welcoming, and you can make friends. You can make friends pretty fast.
Even Toronto. I mean, over time, I really, really like Toronto. I like Montreal at the same time, but I find that Toronto feels like a metropolis to Montreal's Gotham City, whereas is a metropolis like is fake clean, is a New York wannabe, is even some of the politeness is just a mask.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas in Montreal is definitely a dirtier city, but the people are more genuine. Even if they don't like you, they're more genuinely don't like you.
That is true. That is
not a lot of masks.
That's a very interesting way to look at it. There's like, like any country, there's always areas that don't like other areas for different reasons.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like the East Coast is always crapping on like the out West because we're not out there, and they seem to get everything, like all the good stuff, and we get, the leftovers.
It's funny that in Toronto, like me saying, oh man, I'm moving to Montreal.
Oh yeah, that's fighting words.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. We get to go and whatnot. And in Montreal, I'm coming from Toronto. Yeah, fuck Toronto. Like,
that's not uncommon for sure.
I'm like, did you ever visit Toronto? No, but I don't care. It sucks. I'm like, what? Okay. So
it's almost a geopolitical thing on top of. I mean, with Quebec, you get the extra French and English thing too. But that's that's really funny because out here it's like. In where I live, like on the East Coast in Nova Scotia and in New Brunswick and Newfoundland, a lot of people have jobs out west. They go work in oil and come back and go back and that sort of stuff. But so there's almost like I'd say it's almost a jealousy in a way that like it's, their taxes are lower. People out there make more money. They get a lot of resources from the government because they're putting a lot into it. So it's almost like a weird, screw them because they're getting all this and we're not, sort of thing.
And it's interesting that one of the bigger things that I went for when I came to Canada was the fact that for as it's a multicultural country that
Mhm.
is quote unquote defined by two cultures.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I wanted to experience that, and in Toronto you don't,
No,
or
you
in
definitely don't.
Montreal you do.
Mhm.
For as much as people go, oh no, Montreal is just French. Not really.
No,
No,
not really.
it's
And
quite bilingual.
Oh yeah,
Quite
anytime I visit, I've never had. I speak a very small amount of French.
yeah.
I wish I spoke more. I'd like to learn, and hopefully someday I will. But I've never had to rely on that when I've been there. People
Oh,
always, but like it's never like I've had to try to muddle through French to get something or get somewhere.
yeah.
Everyone's always spoken in English, or if I try, they'll just correct because they know I'm English. So
Yeah,
you know,
and the thing is, because like I studied French in school, but it wasn't that much of lessons that like not relevant enough. In school was a very long time ago.
yes, in Quebec,
Uh,
French is subtly different than France French.
so, so I basically had to relearn French, but to go about here. And the thing
Mhm.
is, I wanted to.
Mhm.
Like Andy Boulanger lives here. He doesn't speak French, and it's fine. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to. I veered off on that direction because I wanted to,
Mhm.
and because I like the idea of being able to speak yet another language.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, cool, but teach me. And most of the time, nowadays is frankly better. But I would say that at the beginning, you would hear me speaking in French with mostly sentences like, "How do I say? How do I say?
Yeah.
Is this correct?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of.
Nowadays, that sentence still occurs, but just less frequently.
But I think you're onto something about the multiculturalism of Quebec in general, because like where I grew up, or right where I live and where I grew up not too far from here, a few hours, but you wouldn't see if there's a big Jewish community in this area, I don't really know, but in Quebec there is, like, and there is, and like like mosques and Muslim communities, and Toronto seems to be like a lot of Asian influence.
No, that's still there.
But you get that and a bunch of other stuff in Quebec, which is really cool. I don't feel like you see it as much.
I would say that in Toronto, it's you see it. You see, oh, this is that community. This is that community. That community.
It's separated a lot.
Yeah, it's not that it's separated. It's just like, it's almost as if it's classified. Like,
Oh yeah,
this is this community.
yeah.
They interact with everybody else, but this is this community. Whereas in Montreal, as I said, because it's a it's a rugged Gotham City.
I like that comparison. That's
all
good.
mixed in.
Yeah,
It's like it's just a mush, and you're like, oh, that person is from that community. Not like there's just that whole group over there.
yeah. It's
like,
not defined by it. It's just they are.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So I like that that the mix of cultures that we find here, the way they interact, and the way they also preserve themselves, because it's just not a mush.
Yeah.
So it's at the end of the day, if I was looking, I mean, I've only been like a substantive amount of time only in Toronto and Montreal. But between the two, I would say that Montreal is a better reflection of what Canada is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment. I'll remember that. So tell me about the new book, the Kickstarter.
So Kickstarter, this I would say that this is like Andy Boulanger's fault, because
I've only met Andy once, but I really liked him, and
he's
I'm also a professional wrestler, and I was doing it long before he got into it. So like I met him before he got into it, but then Nick just brought it up to me one day. He's like, Andy's doing wrestling now, and I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, he just fell into it. I was like, oh, it's kind of late in life to fall into, but he seems to have gone all into it, which is amazing.
Full on, and he has been doing creator owned for a long time, and with Image. So he kept egging me on, like, dude, if you have a story to tell, you should do it. It was me, him, and Carrie, and we would always come up with ideas to either do something together or doing something independently of each other, but like in a way push ourselves to do it. And I started I think the idea came about when I watched Prometheus, and I hated it. Like I hated it.
Me and
And
Troy had a long conversation about that movie when I talked to him, just because we're both Aliens fans.
yeah,
And when Covenant came, what would he compare it to? I think we got into a Star Wars talk because it was about the new movie and all that, and we sort of compared how, like, with Covenant, it was the same as like Star Wars, the last Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker. That like the
I
studio list. Oh, you didn't know? Oh,
haven't
I won't
seen
say
it.
anything, but just how the studio seemed to listen to the fan complaints and try to correct.
Yeah,
You know, and I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to do it
but the
because
course correction and Covenant.
it's ridiculous. Like it's like this other character's reduced to like a side character that they just kill off in a
Like the only good thing about Prometheus is I forget her name. It is the character.
Rooney. Oh, not Rooney Mara. That's the other one.
Not Ripley.
Yeah.
It's not Ripley. And then they just kill her off screen on
Yeah.
Covenant, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, I know. She's like the prom. Like I would have been, as much as Prometheus was kind of a muck of stuff. I feel like I would have been more interested to see them do
What
extend
she was
that than
going
just
for?
extend that than just be like, no, we're gonna scrap all that and then do this.
Yeah, so. Anyways,
Anyway, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no problem.
Yeah.
We all often go into the
Me too. Yeah, that's what this is all about.
Yeah, cool. So I watched it with a friend, and I was fuming out of it. And he's like, dude, like you're complaining so much. Why don't you tell a story? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna tell a story. And then I'm gonna tell a story about what?
I like how it's a spite story. You're like, I'm gonna tell a story of spite. Screw you, Ridley Scott. I'm doing it. Yeah.
And that like I had the itch for a bit. I just didn't know what I was gonna tell. And after I reread the Witcher novels, like it's like the third time I reread it or whatever, I was like, I really like the way the writer Andrei Sapkowski builds his universe, and he does social commentary. I would like to tell a story in this fashion. And as I am going about this, CD Projekt Red, which is the company that owns the rights for the Witcher games right now.
That would be the same company that's in a bit of issue now because of Cyberpunk,
they're in a fucked up situation right
The
now.
only reason I know the name is because of Cyberpunk, because it's been such a story lately.
If I'm cussing a lot, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. You're allowed. Go ahead.
Okay,
Cuss away.
Oh, cool. So they got a deal with the Dark Horse to produce the Witcher books, the comic books, and I kept hounding Dark Horse and CD Projekt like, hey, I want to draw it. I sent samples over samples. Like I sent Winter Soldier stuff. I talked to editor friends at Dark Horse. I'm like, guys, like I am here for you. And no. So I'm like, you know what? Thank you. Mm-hmm. And the last bit of what got me into it was I visited the Marvel offices in 2016 by invitation. Axel Alonso was the head coach there at the time, and editor-in-chief head coach.
Same difference.
He invited me. Like I even asked him, dude, you know that my style is not niche. Sorry, that my style is very niche.
Oh yeah.
It's not mainstream. I am not fast. Why do you keep giving me gigs? And he's like, because I like your artwork. I think you're good enough. And I think he's like, I think you could be a superstar if you only made these little adjustments, which was essentially make it faster. So I'm like, thank you. We'll see. And I asked him, can I pitch you some stuff? He's like, dude, pitch anything. I'm sure we can come up with something that we can work on together. So I pitched a Master of Kung Fu, like 70s, with kind of in the vein of Man of Uncle, but with current days 2016.
Shang-Chi.
And involving a few characters that are like forgotten in the Marvel universe, and most of his original cast from the 70s comic book. And I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. I painted a sequence I worked with the guy that I worked with on Doctor Strange, Frank Barbieri, because I was like, I'm not a writer. I need somebody to write this for me. I have this pitch, but I need somebody to write this for me. And I kept like he was sending me we prepared a short story to send. He sent me the short story, and I kept rewriting it. He's like, dude, no, there's no problem. And I was like, I'm sorry, I rewrote it. Like I changed this. I'm like, dude, no problem. Keep going. And as we were waiting for Axel's response, Marvel's response, I was also dabbling in the idea of in the Matrix movies, there is the set of animation. It's called the Animatrix.
Yeah, very familiar.
One of the Animatrix is about how everything got tits up, which is
That's my favorite one, actually. Those ones. Yeah. It was like a two-parter one, right? Yeah, yeah.
Which is when a robot becomes aware and he kills one of his the person he's caring for, and the last thing that he said before he was executed was, "I just wanted to live. I wanted to be free."
Yeah.
So I'm like, I wanted to tell the story of how that robot got sentience and eventually got to that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I started out a pitch of how this robot interacts with the child, and by interacting with this child, they create a bond, and the robot essentially starts dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
And in this dream, they have an avatar in a fantasy world. So I started exploring elements of fantasy to tell the story, and basically just going crazy on the never-ending story part. Mm-hmm. But I was focusing so much on that the robot story kind of slid behind, and I'm still waiting for Marvel's response.
Oh, really? On the Shang-Chi thing?
Yeah. It took a while. They like 2, 3, 4 months.
Well, with the because they have the movie coming out within a few years, I believe. So you think that would tie into that?
Yeah, at the time it was the Iron Fist series coming out.
Right.
So Netflix. I said we can connect this, like we can kind of jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
This visuals and kind of do that, and it just didn't like. Eventually, he said, Axel was like, I love this pitch, but the publisher is not going for it now, so we're just shelving it. And he has asked for it, like he asked for it. The subsequent year and a half, he asked me at least 3 times again. Mm-hmm. He's like, dude, do you still have this? Can I see it? Can I shop it around? And it would always come back as in, yeah, the publisher is still not going for it. I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
So I started working on that. And when I started working on the fantasy side and going back to the way Sapkowski tells the story, I'm like, you know what? I would like to tell a story in the Witcher universe. If I'm not gonna work if CD Projekt does not want me to do their Witcher books, I'll just create mine. But I would like to tell a story that would fit in the way this writer tells his stories in that universe. And as I'm going about this, I'm like, you know what would be better? To tell a relatable story in that universe. Okay, we have dragons, we have monster slayers, we have all of that. But if I could tell a story that is essentially humane in that universe, that would make it even more mine than just I want to tell a story in the Witcher universe. And this is how I got to one of my first things that I read, which was I started reading comics by reading Asterix bande dessinée, Asterix and Obelix bande dessinée. So I'm like, well, we could just use the magic potion. Let me just try to find out what is the drug in like real life. What is the drug that best equates to the effects of the magic potion on these characters? And it's methamphetamine. So I just went on doing lots of reading online, trying to find posts, trying to find people talking about their experiences with that. And I guess the last tidbit was a game that I played called 2 games. One called Gris and the other called Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which is a game that portrays mental health. Psychosis. And one of the effects of even if you're not prone to, but one of the effects of amphetamine withdrawal is psychosis. So I went more and more into, okay, I finally settled into what is this about. So of course the story will, I mean, if you've read my Kickstarter, I have spoiled there that there is an element of mental health, and the story is about addiction withdrawal, and addiction withdrawal, and the reaction of people around that. So
do you have like I was curious about that aspect of it. If did you have if you had a connection with someone that went through that, or yourself went through that, the way that
mental health,
I know mental health.
Mental health, yes.
Yes.
Psychosis, yes. But not addiction.
Okay. But you just kind of marry the two concepts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I wanted to do this correct, not just use a pretext to portray psychosis, because I could just go, this is just about psychosis. But no, to be honest, the gist of the story that I'm telling is the kind of the gist of First Blood, which is how the humans involved in the process, in the machine of war, are disposable. They're tools to be thrown out, and in this particular case, this tool was using stim packs, and this stim packs got the response of that is how this person eventually got addicted, got rejected, how the world reacts to it. There's even an element of the going to war for a motive, a reason that wasn't the reason that you were in the army for, and the people shunning you away for that. So I wanted to use that to make a commentary on the machine of war. And there's a lot of other elements that go into it, bearing in mind that this book is one of several.
Oh, excellent! Cool.
One of several. This is just your introductory, introduction to what you see, what the character is going through. You see the first element of this portrayal, which is how people react to that character. You will see throughout the story, and then on book 2. There's more of how the machine of war affects people. The book 3, even more, we go more into racism, xenophobia that is involved in those in the machine. Again, I keep calling it the machine of war, but it's essentially that.
That's true.
So the story is. In the way that I explain it, sometimes it feels like it's a bunch of things in one, but essentially is a commentary on the war machine nowadays, using a medieval Dungeons and Dragons setting.
That's a really cool idea. 2 parts of that I think are interesting. Is one is the reference to First Blood, which I didn't really see or recognize when I first read through the stuff for the Kickstarter.
Yeah, I didn't put it there, to be honest.
No, well, just even the idea, I never thought about it, but I would certainly connect, because that property is one that certainly fell pretty far away from the source material eventually.
Absolutely.
Like the original book is a real dark commentary on war, and what, like, in particular the Vietnam War, and what it did to people, and how they came back and were seen as, monsters, even though they didn't ask to be sent there, and had to do terrible things. And like the book ends with him getting killed by his commanding officer after begging him to kill him. And the movie, in my opinion, should have ended the same way. But if you think about sequels that got it wrong, they all did beyond that one, because after that it just becomes an action movie where he's blowing up people in other countries and whatever.
Yeah, I think it was the fad of at the times. I mean,
it was. Yeah, they made it into an action.
The buffed 80s action hero. Yeah, and he was like, Stallone was so good. Yeah, on the first one that you're like, it's again like the ending for Rocky. I mean, you've seen Sly has talked about it. That the ending for Rocky, it was supposed to be, yeah, he got that moment of elation.
Yeah.
He went the distance. That's the ending. There
Yeah.
was no need for more.
Yeah.
Granted that the sequel, I would say that Rocky 1 and 2 are very, very good. Rocky Balboa is
Oh,
very
Balboa may be my favorite one. I love that movie.
exactly.
It's very, very good. And I like the Creed movies as well.
Creed
Like I like
movies are also very, very
fantastic.
good. Whereas 3 and 4 and 5.
Yeah, 5's pretty ridiculous. But 4 is even like a propaganda, yay America kind of movie. Like
Yeah, but 4 is fun.
it's fun in its own. Yeah, it's fun in its own way. And in the third one, you get Hulk Hogan.
These movies are fun.
Yeah.
Whereas, well, the thing is, oh yeah, Rocky's a dumb guy that fights, but he has a lot of heart, and he's got a lot of stamina as well.
Yeah, it's true.
Whereas with First Blood, like you have defined this guy, you have defined your message. He goes off into the sunset. That's it.
Yeah.
And then after that, like, hey, by the way, disposable. Can I use your disposability again so you can go kill other people over there?
Yeah.
I'm like I even like that at the time because at the time the U.S. was against Russia.
Yeah.
What Rambo does in Rocky, on Rambo 3, I think he goes help the Mujahideen of Afghanistan.
Yeah, against the Russians. Yeah.
You're like, oh, that wouldn't happen nowadays. But
no, not at all. In fact, America propped up that whole thing. So it's like you're celebrating it by saying, "Hey, let's go help them."
Exactly. I mean, it was around that time that they were training the other guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just funny how that the film, like the idea of the old style war propaganda film, still kind of existed. I mean, I guess it still does in a way, but just a little more overt or than it used to, or a little more subterfuge, like a little more secret than it used to be, or not quite as overt. But so
that's basically what I was aiming for.
Yeah. So was war always a subject that you were, like, is it something it's just something that fit into the narrative you want to tell?
It was something that, like, as I said, these pieces started kind of falling into the right places as I went about researching and like coming up with the story, and the characters start speaking. I'm like, okay, this narrative is best told. Like my initial go for this was just a story that was more closer to Asterix, with more references to Asterix, to the point where the druid was kind of the bad guy because he made a cursed potion. And then as I started going about it, I'm like, if I am trying to do this a little more relatable, I could do the cursed potion thing. This would happen in the Witcher universe, but it doesn't jive. I think we could go a little further with this. So
there needs to be a reason for it.
Yeah, and I even went as far as instituting corporations in this universe that deal with magic, and this is also a great part of the commentary that I make. I'm like, okay, we don't get people selling cell phones here just because, but there's other things. Yeah,
that fit within the universe.
That's very interesting. Fit into this narrative that I can include, that can even be the reason why there are monster slayers. So it, like, as I said, things started falling into place in a way that now I have a kind of clear, I plotted the book, so I have a pretty clear view of what it is that I'm trying to say and where we are going. Like, initially, this was going to be a 4 to 6 issue miniseries. And then, of course, a miniseries with 40 pages each, but that was not going to be it. Yeah. So it then became kind of a 4 to 6 book narrative. But the way that I'm also portraying, I can't say this because this would be a huge spoiler.
Oh, no worries.
Portraying something in which I use a color palette, specific color palette to portray that. And that goes on two books or 2-1-2-1 books. So like the next book, book 2 is still falls under the umbrella of the color palette and the reasoning that I'm doing this specific color palette to be present on the first part of the story. So I keep, well, actually it's not a spoiler because I put this on Kickstarter. So it's the 5 stages of grief.
Oh yes.
The character is also going through what they perceive is the 5 stages of grief. We will have to find out if they're grieving or not. But this is where the influence of the game Gris comes about, because it's a platform is done by a Spanish company, but they use visual storytelling and color palettes in a spectacular way to tell the story. And I think it's so effective that I was like, I think I can use this to try to fit into the narrative that I'm trying to say. Eventually somebody's going to go and say, oh, most of this book is just one color. And after you get the whole, I get what was the point again now? That's the whole shtick.
Yeah, it looks amazing. And the only comment I had was the link to the mental health aspect of it. So this is something you've had issues with in your life?
I did, yes, I did, and I do. It's I've you know the little voice in your head. Sometimes it's too loud, too present, too negative. So when it gets to a point that is beyond the little voice in your head, is when you're dealing with. So I have issues with depression. I have issues with extreme anxiety, and I have had the odd episodes of psychosis. Nothing too grand, but it's something that I've had to deal with since I was a little kid.
Yeah, I know you're fairly open on social media about that, and that's why I didn't feel to be something you didn't want to talk about.
But I felt there was something that I could. There are actually 2 elements, and again, it feels like I'm bringing one too many things to this. But once you read the story, you feel those things being shown to you at a pace that you're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some there are narratives that are sprawling narratives, like Watchmen, for instance, or something like that have a ridiculous amount of things in it that can all lead to different things, or a part of the narrative that are just so ingrained in it it's not hitting you over the head. It's just part of it. So that's
the thing that I was going to say is the 2 things that are. It's not like I see myself, but the 2 things that I initially used myself as we could talk about this was the mental health aspect and racism, which is growing up in Mozambique. I suffered racism because I'm mixed colored, so I was never too black to be black and never too white to be white. So I got called off a lot from both sides. I remember one of the most common things that I heard was in Portuguese, mulato não tem bandeira, which is like a mixed color has no flag. And it's something that remained. In fact, my situation in school was so dire that it was one of the reasons why I wanted to leave the country, because I hated it. So that commentary comes into place because my character that I'm not going to spoil. I'm not going to spoil.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean it to work you into it. But no, I think
that comes into play.
Okay.
There are characters that speak to that.
I think it all kind of seems to circle back around to what we first talked about, which is representation.
Yes.
It's incorporating mental health and people that may suffer from similar issues as you have. To see their problems in a character, like in a book, which I think is very important, as well as with the racism aspect of it, as well as maybe even someone from where you're from in life achieving something, and giving people from Mozambique or other areas like that. To see I can do this as well. So
I got a weird moment one of the times that I visited. It's not very common because, as I said, it's still something that is. It's not like it's frowned upon. It's just like lawyers have real jobs. Yeah. Doctors have real jobs. Artists are. So
that's the eternal struggle.
Yeah, I was at a bar hanging out with my brother and his wife, And so the server comes about and he's like pouring the drinks and he's like, "Hey, dude, you're Marco, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And he's like, "Oh man, you do comics?" Like, "Oh yeah, I do comics." Like, "Oh man, I'm a huge fan. Like, I follow all of your stuff." I was like,
That's awesome.
because I am used to. I mean, I'm not bragging, and I don't take fandom for granted at all. But I have to acknowledge that over time, I have a niche of the market, and I have fans, people that go for my work specifically. And so I'm more used to having that type of commentary at a convention, or if I go to a comic book shop. In fact, not in comic book shops because people don't know who I am. So when I go and say I am this person, like, nah, you're not. So I was not expecting that to happen there. So that was a good surprise. Like, hey,
that's awesome. That's very cool.
One day, can I take a picture? I'm like, yeah, sure, you can take a picture. So it was surreal. I dig that. That was pretty
cool. As you should. I mean, like I said, it hopefully can inspire some other young Mozambicans who I don't know if I pronounced that right. Mozambiquers. What is the correct?
Oh, it's Mozambicans.
Oh, that's right. The first time. Okay, Mozambicans. To perhaps pursue their dream and not believe it's not unobtainable because of their geological location.
If I can get the reaction that I got when I saw, and it's funny because I don't feel this way anymore, but when I saw Jim Lee's X-Men for the first time, where I was, okay, this is amazing. And the thing is, having grown up and having like gone to study the work that I do, I don't like Jim Lee's X-Men comics anymore. I was like, this wasn't his best work.
No, but it was his early work, and it's what got him noticed.
That's the thing.
That's what you needed.
That, some time ago, I did like a full reread of from Dave Cockrum to Jim Lee to Jim Lee, and I was like, on what's his face, Silvestri. I'm like, okay, it's pretty good. Like you get Cockrum, you get John Byrne, you get Mark Silvestri. I'm like, this is pretty good. And then you get Jim Lee. At the time, it's a good transition between because
Silvestri and him were similar in style.
Yeah, and Silvestri was doing like it's almost as if he was doing kind of a mix between John Buscema with Jim Lee. Like the Australian X-Men was kind of like that, and I love that. And then I love it still today. Whereas if I read the X-Men comics, the Jim Lee one, I mean, I love the stories, whatever. But it's just that I was so into it. Like I was a huge fanboy. Yeah. And nowadays I'm like, it's just not. It's just a matter of taste. If you like it, you do. If you don't, you don't. But if I can have the reaction, if I can have in anybody, the reaction that I had when I saw that comic, I'm like, all right, that's it. I don't need to do anything else. My objective is dead meat.
Well, I think you've achieved it. I certainly felt that way when I first saw your work. So I'm assuming I'm not the only person. But so anything else did we cover everything? Are you feeling good?
Oh, I'm just answering questions. And
I know what you're doing. It's been enthralling. I'm really enjoying listening to you. So, is there anything? The book is Kickstarted. The Kickstarter's over. Yeah, but so if you haven't done that yet, you'll have to buy it on the aftermarket way through your local comics. Everyone comes
I was surprised that like my print run was 500. And
you hit what was your pledge, your goal?
33. I mean, with shipping and the Kickstarter, it was 33 grand.
Okay, and you hit 36.659.
Yeah, and we got it, so that was pretty good. I was afraid we wouldn't get it, but the print run is 500, and we got like 462 books sold. So I'm like, I probably will need to do a Kickstarter for another for another.
Yeah, I would say. Or I notice sometimes people add the ability to buy it after the fact to their Kickstarter. I'm not sure how you do that, but that may be an option as well. But yeah, no, it looks amazing, and I'm super glad I got in on it and excited to read it when it comes out. And what's RDW stand for? I meant to ask you.
It stands for, it's a Bob Dylan song about addiction to heroin, a rainy woman.
Nice, very cool.
So I was
That's
like,
another level of coolness to it. I'm a Bob Dylan
I'm
fan as
like,
well.
I can remove, like I can use the title. Like the title is A Rainy Day Woman, and I put it just Rainy Day Woman. Like it's not too much copyright infringement.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, you know what? Just to avoid any problems, it's RDW, no problem.
That's fair. You don't need a cease and desist letter from the offices of Bob Dylan.
No.
But thank you so much, Marco. This is awesome, and I'm really
thanks
glad.
for having me. It was fun
dude,
to talk.
it was a real pleasure, and I look forward to the book and anything else you put out in the future.
Thanks. It will probably be more of this. Hopefully.
I'm on board.
Cool.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
You too.
And happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Oh yeah, happy holidays.
This actually will be coming out on, I think it's the 20. Is that the Saturday? Is the 25th this year? Or is it 26th? This will be out on the 26th, so Boxing Day. So it's a nice Christmas present. Anyway,
and happy New Year to you.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks again.
Take care, man.
Bye bye.
Sure.
And there it is, my talk with Marco Rudy. Man, what a great conversation. I had a blast, really. I could have done that all day, but I know he has things to do, like working on his creator own project, and, I got some things to do as well. So it was very cool talking to him. I'm super happy. I don't want to gush too much, but man, I really enjoyed it, and I love his work, and I love learning more about him, and I'm super pumped for that book. So I hope you enjoyed the journey as well. As he mentioned there earlier when we started, we had set a time to talk at 3:00, and I had totally forgotten he lives in Quebec, which is an hour behind where I live. So when I said 3, or an hour ahead of hour behind. Yes, when I said 3, and I got on the computer at 3, it was only 2 for him. So I messaged him, sent the link. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'll be on at 3," and I was like, "Oh right, you are an hour behind." So that was a miscommunication. Totally my fault. I'm an idiot, but it happens. So anyway, I just want to sign off and say happy holidays. I hope you have a great day and great holidays. I will be back with the normal routine next week with our regular scheduled episode. This time I'll be talking about the Marvel Comics character as seen in Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers, Infinity War, the Collector. Looking into an elder of the Marvel Universe, going to look into his history. But anyway, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for joining me in this journey this year. It's been a real pleasure to be here with you. And I couldn't be happier with how this has gone and with how the support I've gotten and the people that seem to be listening and enjoying it. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And here's to 2021. I will see you next year.